We're honored to have a special guest here today to be recognized from a national standpoint. And I got to tell you that when I first started school at Oklahoma State University, I was very interested in getting into radio and TV. We had 2 campus radio stations, and it was my first week or 2 of school at OSU, and I went to the radio station hoping to maybe get a job, maybe get on the air at the radio station. And there was a guy there that was the program director for the campus station by the name of John David. And I said, I'd like to get on the radio. And John said, well, you need to do an announcing test before you can, we determine how good you are. So he brought out this announcing test, and it was an old announcing test from NBC Radio. And part of my deal, I had to describe a parade going down Broadway in New York City. Well, when I finished that report and doing that, he said, don't call us, we'll call you. So it took me a while to get on the campus radio station, but our guest today worked at radio stations here in Oklahoma, like at Poteau, Sapulpa, and Muskogee, working his way up, ultimately Stillwater, and then where I first remember him on the radio was at KOMA in Oklahoma City. He was one of the disc jockeys on that station back in the big days of KOMA radio. So we're proud to have him here with us today, and I'd like the clerk to read the citation, please.
Whereas John David transitioned to senior advisor to the National Association of Broadcasters in February 2018 after serving as NAB Executive Vice President of Radio. In his Executive Vice President role, he was responsible for service to NAB member radio stations and liaison with the NAB Radio Board. John joined the NAB in 1989 as Vice President of Broadcaster Congressional Relations. And whereas John David is a native of Poteau, Oklahoma, and started his broadcasting career at KLCO Radio. His broadcast career includes programming and management positions at radio stations in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kansas. He worked at stations in Poteau, Sapulpa, Muskogee, Stillwater, and Oklahoma City. From 1971 to 1988, he served as the Executive Vice President of JR Broadcasting Company as owner and general manager of radio stations in Missouri and Kansas. John represented Kansas and Missouri as a member of the NAB Radio Board of Directors from 1984 to 1988. He is a past president of the Missouri Broadcasters Association and the recipient of the MBA Distinguished Broadcaster Award. And whereas from 2000 to 2017, John was recognized by Radio Inc. magazine as one of the top 40 most powerful people in radio. In 2017, John was recognized in Las Vegas with a Ward Qual Leadership Award from the Broadcasters Foundation of America. He is also a member of the Oklahoma Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame and was one of the first inductees into the Missouri Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame. And whereas the Oklahoma State Legislature congratulates John David for receiving the NAB National Radio Award and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Illinois Broadcasters Association, and was recognized as a distinguished alumni from the Oklahoma State University. In November of last year, he was recognized as a Giant of American Broadcasting in New York City. Now, therefore, pursuant to the motion of Representative Harold Wright and Senator Bill Coleman, the Oklahoma Legislature extends to John David and directs this citation be presented.
Mr. Speaker, would you please recognize Senator Coleman?
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. John David, I've known him quite a while. He's been like a great-grandfather to me. As a second grader, I lived here in Oklahoma City. The same time a young John David was a boss jock on the mighty KOMA. Every morning I would get up, I would turn my radio on, and there would be Danny Williams on WKY. At the time, I had no clue who John David was. Thank you. You're very welcome, John. In all seriousness, John is a great Oklahoman who I'm very, very proud to know. John David advocated for an industry that has been a part of my entire life, through my whole life, and I'd like to publicly thank him for his efforts for advocating the story of radio in our nation's capital. John, thank you very much for representing my profession and the great people of the great state of Oklahoma.
Thank you. Members, we have some guests here, and I'd like to introduce them at this time. We have John's brother, Jim David here, Nancy Sturby, who's the director of the Oklahoma Association of Broadcasters, Vance Harrison, who's president of the Oklahoma Association of Broadcasters, Will Payne from Southeast Oklahoma is the current chairman of our board, and Ty Tyler is here also on our board from Tyler Media. So we'd like to thank them for being here to help share in this honor for John David. At this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like for John David to say a few words, please. Would you recognize him?
Mr. David, you are recognized.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's indeed a great honor to be here today and be recognized by my good friend and fellow broadcaster, Speaker Pro Tem Harold Wright. The Speaker Pro Tem said I could say a few words, so I asked what I could speak about, and he said less than 2 minutes. So I just want to thank all the people over here that came over here that he just introduced. I won't introduce them again, but I'm honored that they showed up here today. I've been in Washington, D.C. for a number of years, but my political influences all started here early in Oklahoma. I grew up around Senator Bob Kerr, who had Angus cattle, all of them down around Poto, and that's where I grew up. Former House Speaker Carl Albert was my high school commencement speaker and was a family friend. I remember Raymond Gary with his Stetson hat. Former Governors Dewey Bartlett, J. Howard Edmondson, Henry Bellman, George Nye. And one of my idols, because he was a great rodeo announcer, was the Honorable Clem McSpadden. He was also a great legislator in this Capitol for many years. As an aside, I remember going to one of the best rodeos in the country, the Prison Rodeo in McAllister. You went in single file and you came out single file for obvious reasons. And I think it's probably the only place in the world that I've seen Brahma bulls hooked up to chariots so they could have a Brahma bull race in the arena. The cowboys always wanted to get hurt because they got out of their cells and went to the infirmary. So it was a super rodeo. I want to thank you again for this recognition in this chamber today. I've never been in here. And I know this service to Oklahoma is sometimes challenging and often rewarding. And I want to thank you. You do it because you love this great state. And building consensus and negotiating is a positive way of helping the state, and I know you do it very well, so congratulations. My personal thanks again. Congratulations to Speaker Pro Tem Harold Wright for his leadership in this body, and also to State Senator Bill Coleman, who's a good friend of mine as well. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.